Hey guys, I'm Karlyn Borysenko. This is the Decode the Left Substack. You can find it at Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. This is an exclusive live stream that I'm doing on Substack to pontificate about something that I just feel like pontificating about. Do you guys want to join me? It's 10:30 at night, and I've decided to, do a nighttime stream. I wanted to try to stream during the day today, and I just didn't have time to do it. There's just a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I just didn't have the time to, but I've got some stuff to say. And mostly, I don't know. Well, I mean, there's actually a lot of topics I want to chat about with you guys. I want to start doing just more general interest live streams where it's like I'm just pontificating on my thoughts about what's going on in the world, what's going on in the space. Like, I've always wanted to do this. I may even make this a part of the Inner Circle podcast, if I'm honest about it. The Inner Circle podcast is like the premium podcast for the Substack, and I don't post that much to it, but I always had this idea of like doing Inner Circle stuff where I'm just pontificating about, being kind of like a person in this space and doing what I do and giving you guys kind of an inside glance of how my head works, which might be a scary place for some of you. But I also know that people are interested in this. And so I think it's an interesting thing to kind of dissect and talk about at the same time. Because, one of the things that I am trying to do with my work, and this might sound cheesy, and I understand this might sound cheesy, and this does relate to the topic of James Lindsay, and we're going to get to that. But one of the things I've always tried to do with my work in particular is I think a lot about history. I studied history. I didn't study World War II, okay, until recently. But I have studied history. I studied American history. I studied like Revolutionary War history. Like the Revolutionary War and the Civil War were my, favorite time periods to study in history. I went to school in Boston. I got to be, I got to go to all the revolutionary stuff just by walking out of my dorm room, which was pretty cool, honestly. But so I think a lot about history with what I do, and I think a lot about creating a legacy, not necessarily about me, but about someone taking the time to document what the left is doing. Writing books, producing artifacts, making archives, putting all these materials together. I think a lot about how there's no one on our side doing what I'm doing and what members of my community are doing. There's just no one. And I say this all the time. If you know of someone who's doing this, please tell me because I want to talk to them. I don't want to be the only person doing this. I think that is the most insane thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Like, who could have predicted this? You don't grow up one day and say, I want to archive and study socialism on the internet. Okay. That's not like a career path, but here we are. And I think a lot about creating this record for history so that, and maybe it'll all get destroyed and none of this will matter. Maybe the earth will get visited by aliens and it'll all get blown up and none of it will matter. But say it does survive and say the records exist 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. People are going to have an archive to come back and look and see what happened. And it's not just going to be leftist propaganda. It's going to be something real. It's going to be, well, it is leftist propaganda, but it's not put together with a narrative to tell a heroic tale of the liberation of the people. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot about providing that archive to history and doing a lot of what I'm doing to create this record that this stuff happened. And, I was an avid reader growing up. I don't actually read much anymore, which I know is a sad confession to make, but I have so much content. Well, I guess I do read a lot. I read leftist stuff. It's actually, you know what? I take that back. I read all the fucking time. I read zines, I read manifestos, I read propaganda, I read whole books about the left. Okay, when I said I don't read, I mean, I don't read stuff just for me that I'm like, I used to read such crappy books. I don't even want to talk about what I used to read because there were vampires involved in several different forms. Some sparkled, some didn't. And so I used to read really shitty books. But like my point is that I have actually been a reader my entire life. And and one of the things that's so shocking to me is how so few people on our side write books. There's no one writing about this from our perspective. The only books that I have so many things I want to say about conservatives. That's going to be another stream for another day. But like when conservatives write a book, It's to advance a political narrative. Or it's to just be able to say, and most of the time, you guys know the truth is most of the conservative people that you see publishing books don't actually write their own books. They don't even write their own books. These aren't even their own thoughts. It's not even their own work. It's just for show. It's a fucking branding exercise. When the left writes books, I mean, of course there are people just like these conservative grifters on the left. Of course they have theirs. But when leftist activists write books, these are works of love. This is something they put their soul into. It's something they see as part of their identity. It's not just a branding exercise. It does do that, but it's not just that. I've always been shocked to change hands that I'm holding my phone. I'm always kind of shocked at how few books come out of our side. And that's one of the reasons I decided to double down on book writing. I can't write every book, but, oh, shoot, something fell on the floor. I'll have to get it later. That's fine. I've always been shocked at just like how few books come out of our side. And I can't write all the books, but I can write a lot of books, and AI makes it easier than ever to write books. So why aren't we churning out this information to make sure it's out there? Self-publishing has never been easier. Why aren't there more people doing this? That's a rather long-winded way, I guess, of just giving you guys a little bit of a backstory about kind of my beliefs about thinking about this being a time for history, thinking about documenting things for history, thinking about creating a record of this to make sure something actually exists. And that's why I originally started going after James Lindsay. That's why I originally started going after him. Let me take a drink of water. James has spread so many rumors about me and so many lies about me. And the reason I think is that he's intimidated by me, and he's always been intimidated by me. My work is better than his. It's always been better than his. Now, I'm not going to say that James's work was never good. I'm not going to be like James and be like and pretend that there's nothing good about what he has done in the past. I do think some of the things James did were very good. It's not like he's wrong about. It's not like he has been wrong about everything his entire career. But at some point, it went off the rails. And I understand how things can go off the rails. It's very easy to when you're in this space. And so you can forgive some of it to a certain extent. But the spiral that man has been on since I first started going after him to yell about how he was lying about people, and I started that at the end of 2023. I was going after James before October 7th. I was going after James before the whole woke rights stuff. I wasn't the first to get to him. There were people going after him before that. But I was really he was on my shit list for a while. And the reason he was on my shit list is because he was lying to millions of people about what was going on. He was lying, just flat lying. And that I find offensive. Just on a personal, intellectual level. I'm not a perfect person, God knows. But I really do try to have a sense of intellectual honesty, to admit when I'm wrong, to take in new information, to be able to change my mind, to be able to say, you know what, I didn't realize that, or I didn't think about it like that, or wow, that's a perspective I hadn't considered, or I just never even knew that even happened, or I was lied to about that thing. There's so many things throughout history that we've been lied to about, right? And so, should there be any shame in admitting, I got that one wrong for a reason X, Y, B, and Z, whatever. You live, you learn, you move on. So I'm not a perfect person by any means, but I really think that having some sense of intellectual integrity is important, especially if you're trying to communicate information to people. And it never occurred to me that most conservative influencers would just be as overtly unethical as they are. And trust me, they absolutely are. Again, another story for another day. So I started going after James in the end of 2023 when I hadn't listened to James for years before that. We need to go back. I'm telling an arc of a story for people who may have not been aware of the full arc with the James Lindsay saga, because I need to tell it at some point anyway, so why not do it here? So I was a fan of James in 2020 and 2021. In mid-2021, I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke: The Ultimate Guide for Fighting Back Against the Woke Insanity in Your Life. I turned in the manuscript for that book in June of 2021. The book was not published until the following May. That's how publishing them works. This is why I no longer go through a quote unquote real publisher. It takes too long. Like you submit a manuscript, you wait 9 months to a year and a half before they actually get around to publishing your book. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, so I turned in this book in May or June of 2021, came out the following year. I dedicated the last chapter to James because back when I wrote that book, he was very much an inspiration to me. He really was. And my thought around writing that chapter was, and the chapter says this, it's like, if everyone worked as hard as he did to solve this problem, we wouldn't have a problem. I'm very impressed by people with a work ethic. I'm very impressed by people who I see showing up consistently, putting in the effort. I abhor lazy people. There's almost nothing that drives me crazier than laziness. And so I really did respect his work ethic at the time. I respected a lot of his work. I thought a lot of his work was very good. After I turned in that book manuscript, this might sound odd to people. I stopped listening to James. And it was a purposeful decision because after I turned in that book manuscript, I wanted to do deep dives I wanted to start studying the left. And that's what I had been working up to, and that's what I had been doing up until that point. I'd already been studying the left for a while. That book was about the left, but I really wanted to get in, and I was doubling down on, want to understand this, I want to reverse engineer this, and all of this stuff, because I love figuring out puzzles. So I purposefully stopped listening to James Lindsay in mid-2021 because I didn't want to be influenced by him. I wanted to be able to I am a PhD researcher. I know how to do this type of research. I wanted to be able to look at the information. And I'm very good at qualitative research, but the way I do qualitative research is it's not statistical. Quantitative research is statistical. I was never good at that. I don't like statistics, so I was never really good at that. But I'm very good at qualitative research. What that means is I can take in a bunch of information and do pattern recognition like that. I'm just very good at it. I did it. That was what the style of my PhD dissertation. It was a grounded theory study based on lived experiences. I had to interview people. I had to look for patterns and how it showed up in the data and all that stuff. So I'm very, very good at doing that type of research. I didn't want to be distracted by James because when I'm researching something and I want to understand it, I have to be very tunnel visioned in that thing, in that if I take in information that is kind of outside of the data set that I have selected, it messes up my ability to analyze it because I'm taking in all this information, I'm looking for patterns, but I'm not writing this down. This is all happening in my head. So I had to stop listening to James, and I stopped listening to a lot of people. I stopped listening to most people because I wanted to completely tunnel vision on what the left was doing so I could focus deeply on that topic, so I would be in the best position to kind of start unwinding it and understanding the psychology of it and all of that. I didn't listen to James for another 2 years, from mid-2021 through mid-2023. And all of this is documented on my YouTube channel, by the way. You can go back and look. And in that time period, James Lindsay lost his fucking mind. And in that time period, I had spent thousands of hours watching leftist content, going undercover at leftist events, teaching this stuff. I'd started to get really good at teaching it. Not as good as I am today, but I've been doing this for a long time now, right? So I was starting to get really good at the teaching of all this stuff. And I would start seeing people come into my audience and they would be saying these crazy things about Gnosticism. And so I'm watching leftist trainings. I'm going to leftist events. I'm looking at their materials. I'm studying their behavior in the real world. It's like an anthropological study. I'm studying the left in the wild. I started getting these people coming into my chat talking about Gnosticism, Gnosticism, Gnosticism. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because here's one of the things that I know about the left. If the left cares about something, they're going to talk about it. They're going to write books about it. They're going to do presentations about it. They're going to have meetup groups about it. They're going to have a mutual aid committee about it. If the left actually cares about something, if it's a topic that's of top of mind thought, they're going to talk about it endlessly, ad nauseum. You are not going to be able to escape it. If you want to find information on it, you can. The left doesn't talk about religion. The left doesn't talk about Gnosticism. I think I've seen maybe 2, not e like 1.5 presentations about religion in the entire time I've been, and it's not as though I haven't looked. So it's like, I had these people coming into my chat calling the left Gnostics. I'm like, "Where the fuck are they getting this idea? Like, who on what conservative retard is telling their audience that the left are Gnostic cultists?" Well, it was James Lindsay. And I was like, "What the fuck? What is even going on right now?" So, the reason that I started going after James at that time was because I was pissed off that he was lying to his audience. And then we started looking into this book about queering the American child that he wrote with Logan Lansing, or that Logan Lansing wrote with him, or whatever. And we started like looking at what was actually in that book, and we were like, "Okay, did you guys mention capitalism in the entire book? Because we're looking at all these queer documents, and we're listening to actual queer activists, and they're all talking about wanting to abolish capitalism and hating capitalism. In this entire book that you assholes wrote about queering the American child, did you tell people that this was about abolishing capitalism? No." Doesn't mention capitalism once in the book. Now, that might seem like a small thing, but you have to understand, these assholes were professing to be experts on the left, and they were ignoring what the left was doing in the real world. They were just ignoring it. It was like they didn't want to see it. They had this narrative that they were crafting, that this was all about pedophiles, 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 and all that's bullshit. That's not what queer theory is about. Listen, I'm not saying there aren't real pedophiles in the world. Of course there are. It's horrible. People should take care of that. The very bad things should happen to them. I'm not suggesting that's not something that happens, but what I am telling you is, when it comes to queer theory, when it comes to queer activism in the real world, this is not about sexualizing kids. It is not. It is about teaching them that gender does not exist, and that they can change their gender as easy as changing an outfit, to abolish the gender binary, and it also has to do with parental rights and stuff like that. But it has nothing to do with sexualizing kids. In fact, I've seen queer Marxists speak out against that, just flat out. There is real grooming that takes place, but the grooming that takes place is teaching kids that gender doesn't exist. That is the grooming. That is the introduction of that idea is the basis of every single thing they're doing. Anyway, so we started looking at the content of this book that like Logan wrote with James, all about this subject, but it wasn't about this subject. It was about something they made up. And so then I started to get really pissed off, because I'm like, assholes, I understand everyone wants to make money. I understand everyone wants to be famous, but you guys are lying to millions of people about what the left is doing. Full stop. You are lying to people, and people trust you to tell them the truth, and you are not telling them the truth. And there is a mountain fuck ton of evidence that I have that is directly from leftist sources that contradict everything you guys are telling people. I was infuriated by this, and this is the type of thing that really gets me. Again, it's the intellectual dishonesty of it all. This is why there's so few people that I will actually ever collaborate with, because I will only collaborate with people who I believe are intellectually honest. And in this space, bro. So we started going after James because we were pissed off that he was lying to people. And I literally just wanted him to tell the truth. That was the God's honest truth of the situation. I just wanted James to tell the truth. My goal was never to get James Lindsay to shut up. My goal was to get James Lindsay to stop dicking around with this Gnosticism bullshit, actually be honest about what was going on. That was my goal. Hang on. There we go. I never expected him to go insane. And listen, I don't think I'm the only one that's driven James Lindsay insane. Not by a long shot, but I know I had a lot to do with it. I know I had a significant amount to do with it, because James hates me. He hates me so much. He has spread rumors about me for years. This is all true, and this is all documented, and I have receipts to back up everything that I say. James got so pissed at me that he told people that I tried to fuck him when I never even flirted with him. I never even I barely have even spoken to the man in person. He told people for years that I was totally in love with him and wanted to fuck him. And like, in those exact words, that was what was relayed to me. You look at things like Like he got me canceled with the Babylon Bee. He flat out got me canceled. They credited a source that came from me. They credited a piece of my work, and James was so pissed off that they credited a piece of my work that he demanded that they take away the credit and remove me from an article that is based on my fucking work. Because he didn't like me and thought I was a narcissist, and they did it. They capitulated to that. James has lied on his Twitter account multiple times saying I have personality disorders I don't have. James has called me every name in the book, and it's like, you know what? You don't do that. You don't do that unless you're really pissed off. And so I know we got to him. Because you don't just irrationally hate someone to that level. I never did anything to James. I literally never did anything to him. I was never anything but nice to him until I realized that he was lying to his audience, and then I realized that he'd been lying about me for years and had spread all these fucking lies about me to discredit me. And then later I found out, and this is another thing I do have evidence for, James was stealing my work all along. Like we started watching James's speeches once we realized James was full of shit and he was making stuff up. Like, we started watching his speeches, and again, all this is on my YouTube channel. You can go back and watch. We started watching speeches where James was using words that were verbatim things that I was saying on streams. Like, exactly the same thing. Like, I would say something on a stream, like, for weeks and weeks and weeks, I was saying, like, or even months, like, there was a line that I used to have on Socialism Saturday where I said, the left shares our vocabulary, but not our dictionary. And I said this over and over, and I never heard that from James. I had never heard that from James. Well, James heard it from me, though, because he started saying it at his events. Like, verbatim that line. And that wasn't the only thing we caught him stealing. And I'm not even the only person James has stolen work from. I know James has stolen ideas from other people. And so it's kind of like the downfall of this guy. And then he's getting so pissed off that he's not getting the recognition that he deserves, and then his stepdaughter comes out and shares personal information, all that stuff. If you don't know all the drama of James, don't really worry about it. But, like, he starts going after Catholics. He starts saying things that are overtly anti-Catholic. He starts going after Christians. And every single time he positions himself as the victim of the situation. And he's just like, I never expected James Lindsay to go this insane. And I find the whole thing to be just incredibly sad, if I'm honest about it. It's like, I really do think the internet drove that guy insane. And I understand that to a certain extent. I understand how Twitter can do that to you. You get in an echo chamber and it's all you're looking at and it's the majority of information you're taking in. And the algorithm on Twitter is so terrible for people who get into that outrage kind of like rabbit hole. And I mean, Twitter almost did this to me. I used to be addicted to Twitter. I totally understand this. I was completely in that headspace. I was addicted to this app for a while. And then I got permanently banned for a month, and I lost my Twitter account for a month. And it was actually the most glorious month because I had other Twitter accounts. I could just use those. But it was a glorious month because when my main account disconnected from the algorithm, all I saw on Twitter was like happy things. It was so weird. It was like as soon as my main account got banned, I just started seeing all this happy stuff on Twitter. I was like, where the fuck was this? There's like, important life quotes and beautiful pictures and art and music and like all these like positivity sites. I'm like, where have you guys been? Because I never saw that show up in my feed on Twitter because I was interacting with all the negative stuff. And so I had a month detox from Twitter. And in that month, and that detox was real too, by the way. Like, I was really struggling at one point. I was like, give me my fucking account. I was so mad about it, which again was ridiculous and irrational because I had other Twitter accounts. It wasn't as though I wasn't on the platform. But I say this because, like, I had a forced month detox, and once I had that detox, I was like, I'm never doing that again. And so I've always been very mindful ever since then. Do not allow Twitter to suck you into this. You have to keep a presence of mind. I started, trying to get back into meditation some more. I've really gotten back into meditation this year, which has helped a lot with this. So I was like, I was doing everything I can to say, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. James never did that. Someone did math on a video about James that they did, and the math that they did said that James has tweeted 4 times per hour every waking hour that his account has been active, which is 13 years. Like, really think about that. Listen, man, I tweet a lot, right? Like, and there's some days I tweet more than others, but like, really, 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 really think about that. This man is so sucked into this platform that he literally tweets an average of 4 tweets per hour every single waking hour. That's insane. That's insane. How much content is he consuming on that platform? And so I actually look at the downward spiral that that guy's had, and I feel bad for him. The reason I bring this up is tonight I was on, this is like a really long way to say, tonight I was looking at a video that I watched a couple times since it came out, and it's just like, so basically James did this interview where he said he has lost 85% of his speaking gigs and like 50% of the members of his website. And that, bro, I feel bad for the guy, but you know what? He also did it to himself. And can I say that I probably caused him a headache or two? Yeah, I know I did. Okay. Yeah, I know I did. But I didn't cause James to behave like an unhinged psycho. I didn't cause James to go after Catholics. I didn't cause James to go after Christians. I didn't cause James to become a pro-Israel shill that started telling everyone that disagreed with Israel they were on the woke right. I didn't do any of that. I didn't cause James to behave like an unhinged retard every single day in his Twitter feed for now years. Like, this spiral that James Lindsay has been on, this has been going on for years. I think it's just sped up. And that, I think, is the scariest part, because I don't know how much more psycho this guy can get, because he's going crazy. Someone needs to step in and take away his phone. I really do mean that. It's like, you can watch this happen in real time. And I think that for the people who are watching this meltdown, listen, if you're not involved and you're not watching this day to day, you might not understand, but it is an odd fascination just to watch someone completely undo themselves and not have any self-awareness of what's going on. You know, if I certainly have had moments on the internet where I've said something that ruffled some feathers and I lost some supporters. That absolutely has happened to me. Not a long time though. And even in the worst moment where I said something that people didn't like on the internet and I lost supporters over it, I still didn't lose 85% of my speaking gigs and 50% of my membership. And I don't do a ton of speaking gigs, so maybe that's a bad example, but there has never been any instance where I have been anywhere close. Not even in the fucking ball, not even 10% of my membership. In my worst moment where I said the worst thing I could possibly say and pissed so many people off, I didn't even lose 10% of my supporters. James has lost 50% of his supporters. That's fucking crazy, guys. That's crazy. And listen, it's not as though I'm paying attention to his little meltdown all day, every day, but what the fuck is he doing to lose 50% of his supporters? And if I'd ever lost that many, I would have to have an honest conversation with myself to say, okay, Karlyn, I know you are sometimes a bitch on the internet, but maybe we're pushing a bit too far. And again, like, my audience, there is something about authenticity, isn't there? There is something about authenticity where I've never pretended to be a Christian. And therefore, like, Christians have never had the expectation that I was gonna kiss their ass. Now, I don't care if you're a Christian, if you're I truly don't care, it doesn't matter to me at all, but, like, I hope you don't follow me because you think I'm a Christian, because I'm definitely not, and I don't like Christianity, but I'll get along with you just fine. I interviewed with a Catholic priest, like, last week. I should post the interview on the Substack. Because it was a great interview. Honestly, Father Mateague is like my favorite person to do interviews with, and it's not even close. So I have no animosity towards Christians, okay? Don't get your feelings in a bunch. But like, I never created the expectation that I was a Christian. James did. I am not a conservative. I've never been a conservative. So I never said that I was a conservative. In fact, I was very clear that I wasn't. James made people believe that he left the left to become a conservative. And then when people found out he wasn't, oh, they're going to be pissed off about that. And then he's shitting on Catholicism and he's shitting on all these things, and people are going to be pissed off about that. And he's not. The thing with him is like he didn't know when to stop. Because I do understand. I understand the perspective of like when you're in this profession, it is my job to say what I think. And when you're on the internet in a public way, you have to get used to getting backlash. Because trust me, there's not a single position that you can take on the internet that you will not get backlash from. You will get backlash from literally every single position. If it's a milquetoast position, if it's a radical position, it doesn't actually really matter. You will get backlash for taking a position on anything. So you get very used to it after a while if it is your literal job to take a position on things. So I can kind of understand in this reality where James has gotten very used to taking a position, getting backlash on that position, and when that happens, you need to double down. And so you can get into a zone where literally no matter what type of pushback you get, your automatic inclination is, I'm not bending the knee to you. Go fuck yourself. I said what I said, right? I hope that if I was in a position where I ever lost as much of my audience as James Lindsay has lost, that I would take a step back to say, maybe you went too far this time, Karlyn. Maybe like you're not a perfect person, and maybe you just went too far, and maybe you need to say you're sorry. And I would hope I'd be able to have that honest conversation with myself, because that is an absurd amount of your audience to lose. James was never able to do that. He just kept doubling down and doubling down and doubling down when he just should have shut up. And the thing is like, again, I've done this. I've done the thing where I'm just like tweeting like, fuck you guys, I'm not gonna do it. I completely understand it. And I feel like I'm unironically like a lot more forgiving than James is on this stuff, because I can actually see his perspective on things. But like, he doesn't know when to say when. I think he's got an autistic fixation about this. And I think that's why, it's part of why he's able to get so much attention, but it's also just so sad for the people watching. And I think what's even most shocking to me about the people who follow James around defending him all the time. They're crazy, man. Again, like, I just enjoy looking at the inner workings of social systems. I'm a psychologist. What do you want? And so I've spent a lot of time looking in James's replies and seeing the people that defend James, and they're so cult-like in their behaviors. And isn't it sad too? There are some people who almost their entire account, almost their entire identity is defending James Lindsay. And it's like, really? You're literally giving your identity over to this guy. You are so into this guy and you're so in his little web of bullshit, web of Gnosticism bullshit, that you are giving your identity over to this person to spend all your time defending him. I would never ask someone to spend that much time defending me. That like wouldn't happen. I would just say, you know what? Just don't worry about it. It'll blow over and like whatever, you move on. So I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that and to talk about my perspective on it, and to, and to have a place to tell kind of like a more complete story than people might get here and there. So if people want the full story, they can just listen to this and get the full story. But I do think that James Lindsay's downfall represents a distinct opportunity for me. So I'm not like upset about it. Like, again, he did it to himself, like, whatever. But the fact of the matter is I do think there are a lot of people out there who do wanna understand the left and study the left on a serious basis. The question I have is, like, I don't know exactly how to get in front of those people other than to continue to do exactly what I'm doing, which is just going out and creating content and teaching people and writing books and doing the stuff that I do, and I think that's really all I can do to try to find people who are really interested in this stuff. But I do think that we have a really interesting opportunity. I've gotten so many people from James's audience over the years, and the thing that I always hear when people from James's audience first start consuming my content is they say, inevitably about a month into it, they say, "Karlyn, I learned more from you in a couple weeks than I had learned in years from watching James's content." That is the most common reaction I get from James's former followers. And so I know that I'm a better teacher than him. I know my content's better than him. I know I can be a bit of a handful, but you know what? I'm also kind of leaning into that because, listen, I don't try to be cruel, but I don't try to be cruel to people. But the stuff I deal with and the content that I consume and the headspace that I have to put myself in to do what I do, it's really not the easiest thing in the world. And I'm not making excuses for when I yell on the internet. I kind of love that I yell on the internet. I have people that watch me just because I yell on the internet. So I know there are people that like it. But I also think that people need to understand that I can only deal with so much bullshit at once. I know I'm a tough bitch. Okay, I get it. Okay, fine, whatever. But there is only so much nonsense that I can deal with at one time. And when I'm consuming so much leftist content and then I get smacked in the face with conservative retardation over and over and over and over again, and I'm not saying all conservatives are retards, but I'm saying that there are a lot of retarded conservatives who say a lot of retarded things, and I can only take so much. And so I'm very serious about this idea of having an exclusive community. Not exclusive in that we're like, not exclusive in that you have to meet any particular identity parameters or like even like political position or any of that, but exclusive in that it is a community that is exclusively for people who are serious about studying this content. That's not to say we can't joke. It's not to say we can't have fun. But it's like I want people who take this as seriously as I do, or at least like partially as seriously as I do. What I don't want is a community of people who are constantly owning the libs in my chat. It is so annoying. I cannot even tell you. And so I do want to make this place where people can come and seriously talk about this content and talk about what to do about it and talk about what it means and talk about where it's showing up in their life and learn how to teach it to their friends and learn how to go undercover and learn to do any number of things. But if we are constantly dealing with the lowest common denominator of the internet, like we're going to end up like James Lindsay, and I'm not going to allow that. That's not going to happen. Like the thing that is very distinct between me and other content creators on the internet is I don't consider myself to be a host. I'm not hosting you. That's not the intention. What I am doing is I am teaching. You are in my classroom. I am doing research. I'm doing research. I'm taking you along the ride for me as I do the research. I'm breaking down what I'm thinking about. I'm talking about definitions. I'm breaking down how this fits into the bigger picture. I'm doing this as I'm putting this information together in my head so I can understand what's going on. And you're in my laboratory, for lack of a better term. And I am in charge of my laboratory, and we're going to go where I want to go, and we're going to do what I want to do, not without input and feedback, because of course you guys don't stop giving me input and feedback sometimes. That's fine. But you all understand why you're there. And see, now I've been talking too much. I was yelling a lot earlier, and now I'm suffering for it. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So the reason this is an exclusive community is because this content and what we're doing requires a certain level of seriousness. And so it's not like every other stream on the internet where you can shitpost in the chat and act like a general hooligan and all that stuff. There are plenty of places that you can do that. But I want to create a community that has a higher expectation than that. And if people don't get it when they walk in the door and they want to behave like an unhinged hooligan, they're going to get a warning and then they're going to just, experience the consequences because we don't have to entertain everyone. I don't understand the mentality of a lot of people on the internet. I don't understand the mentality of barging into a room and immediately insulting someone and just creating chaos for the sake of creating chaos. I don't understand that. It's not appealing to me. And I don't like being around people that do that. Or if you're going to do it because you think it's funny, just like go do it somewhere else. You don't have to do it in my chat. You don't have to do it in my live stream. You don't have to do it in my classroom. But I think it's really rude to come in and start yelling at people and insulting them and acting like you own the place when you don't. You're in my fucking classroom. So we need to be able to weed those people out quickly so that we can just dispense with nonsense. And yeah, sometimes I yell and maybe sometimes I yell little bit too much. But I feel very strongly about this that my concept for what we're doing doesn't work unless it feels like an exclusive concept. And yes, I want people in my community to feel like they're better than other people because you are. You're better than other people. If you're in my community, you are taking the time to understand a topic deeply that has very important impacts on our world. You actually care about something. You are putting time and effort and serious thought into something. If you're doing those things, then you are better than other people. And I want people in my community to feel that way. I want people in my community to say, yeah, I'm a part of something fucking cool. This is fucking cool. This is like a little underground cult thing that we get to really nerd out on a topic that's weird and dystopian, and it's all real. And we get to do that around people who think like us. And we're doing things that most people won't do. Most people won't ever go into the real world and go to a leftist event. Most people won't ever watch a person just for hours and hours and hours that you don't agree with at all, just to understand their perspective. Most people don't do this. I want my audience to feel like they're better than other people because they are. And I want it to have that kind of sense of like, you have to work to be a part of this community. And most people aren't going to want to do that. And that's fine. It really is. That's fine. If people don't belong in my community because they don't want to do it and they just want to whine and cry and they want their feelings coddled, like how many elite coaches have ever coddled the feelings of the people on their team? I've never understood this entitlement that some people seem to have having their feelings coddled. I don't care about your feelings. No offense. I'm sure you're a nice person, but you're going to have other people in your life that is not a random person on the internet that cares about your feelings. I'm just not one of them. I don't even know who you are, bro. Or you're on the other side of the camera. I don't know who you are. But so many people expect me to care about their feelings. Like I'm like, bro, you go by an anonymous name and you have an anime icon. I don't know who you are. I'm not going to care about your feelings. That's absurd. And how many elite coaches have ever cared about the feelings of their players when they're telling them, this is what you need to do and this is why you need to do it and you're going to do it because I said so? You know, I don't feel like I'm unreasonable with people, but I do want my community to have a higher standard. And so I do see a lot of opportunity with, James going crazy and us being able to kind of like pick up people that were actually interested in leftist content and say, hey, have you come over here? You want to come over here? Because this is cool. But also, we need to keep in mind that I'm not going, like, not everyone, not just anyone can be here. And I'm very serious about that. And I think that that's actually going to make it better. And I think over time, as people start to get what we're doing, I think that people are going to, it almost makes it more desirable, right? It makes it more desirable that not everyone can do it. And then maybe you have people, and I mean, how many people have we seen this happen to? Where they're fucking around one day and then all of a sudden they start to take it seriously because they're like, oh shit, this is actually a real thing. And so, maybe if people feel like they're part of something that's a little bit more exclusive that they actually have to work for, people value things more when they work for it. People value things more when they have to put effort in. And, like, when was it promised to anyone that studying, our political enemies was gonna be easy? Like, this isn't a game of, like, this isn't a fucking baseball game. This isn't, like, we're actually trying to do something here that is incredibly complex and has so many details and so much nuance and is almost impossible to think about just the overall complexity of it. So whoever told you that was gonna be fucking easy? You don't do it because it's easy, you do it because it's interesting and intriguing and I don't know, everyone has their things. So those are kind of my thoughts, some very long-winded thoughts. That was, much longer than I thought it was gonna be, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, just a little bit more of like a kind of like rambling podcast, about my thoughts about things. And so I'm gonna end it there. You can support my work on my Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. Make sure you download the Substack app. You'll get notifications when I go live. I'm trying to do very regular, exclusive live streams on my Substack, so I want to interact with you guys. If you guys have comments, you can always leave those. And thanks for hanging out. And thanks if you support my work, I really appreciate it. We're going to be doing a supporter exclusive spy stream this weekend into a revolutionary socialist conference. So listen, if you want to see revolutionary socialists in their natural habitat, make sure you're a supporter on the Substack, and you will be getting information about how to join us this weekend. We are going to be streaming this conference for about 12 hours, so you'll be able to pop in at some point, I'm sure. But make sure you sign up as a supporter, $8 a month, $80 a year. That will get you into these weekend spy stream where we're going inside a revolutionary socialism conference, and it's going to be awesome. That's all I have, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.